Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entree Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. This episode of Entree Architect Podcast is supported by our platform sponsors, Archetype, the online resource delivering quality building material information, CAD details, BIM specifications, and more, all for free. And Suite Process. Focus on the work that matters. Document processes, procedures, and tasks all in one place so you can stay focused on growing your business. Daniel Alexander and Richard Loring, welcome to Entree Architect Podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you both here. Daniel Alexander is a co-founder and principal of Domos, a real estate development company based in Atlanta, Georgia. And Richard Loring is the director of design and construction for Domos. At Domos, they view real estate a little bit differently. Their projects are unique co-living investment opportunities that breathe new life into underserved communities across many of our most vibrant cities. They are forward-thinking developers focused on building communities for the way people live in the 21st century. So co-living investment opportunities, breathing new life into underserved communities. I am super excited about having this conversation. I'm interested in what you're doing, both from a business point of view and an environmental, an urban development point of view. I'm interested in both, and I want to learn more. Before we get too deep into this episode, let's say thank you to our platform sponsors, Archetype and Sweet Process. I'm hearing it more and more among the Entre Architect community. The workload is piling up. With project conditions changing and limited time to get things done, it's good to have information at your fingertips. Archetype.com provides architects, engineers, spec writers, and contractors with the most comprehensive libraries of building product content. And it's designed so you can access it quickly and efficiently. Even better, Archetype.com is free to use and requires no registration, no credit card, no email. So visit today at Archetype.com and access the information you need now. That's Archetype.com, ARCAT.com. Let me ask you a question. Are you frustrated with how long it takes to get stuff done in your architecture firm? Or how chaotic and confusing things seem to get? Well, let me tell you about a much better way of getting work done. Let me tell you about an amazing new tool that will help you overcome the frustrating logjams in your architecture firm. Sweet Process. It's a simple yet powerful tool that lets you create clear step-by-step instructions for every task in your architecture firm. From writing proposals to executing client work to responding to client requests. So everything gets done more easily and more reliably. Plus, you'll have a central place where everyone who works for you, your employees, your contractors, even virtual assistants, can access your procedures anytime from any device. The best way to understand how Sweet Process streamlines your work is to start using it. The company offers a 14-day free trial, but listeners to this podcast, the Entre Architect community, you can try Sweet Process for 28 days free of charge, 28 days. You don't even have to enter a credit card to get started. Just visit sweetprocess.com/entrearchitect to start your free 28-day trial. That's sweetprocess.com/entrearchitect. And let them know that you heard about them at the Entre Architect podcast. sweetprocess.com/entrearchitect. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the Entre Architect community. I want to learn more about each of you men. I want to start with Daniel. Can you share your origin story? What inspired you to pursue your passion, and when did you discover that passion?
I think I discovered the passion probably 25 or so years ago, but I just reflect on many, many moments. I'll give you one story specifically really quick, and then I'll come back up to the present day.
All right, sounds good.
Stories like this, I got out of college in 1996 at UCLA. I had a mentor in real estate that really got me started, and the guy taught me a lot and financed a lot of my early deals. But what happened with me is that I had a passion for finding and locating blighted properties. Then I got excited about the design, and I developed a technique that was both efficient, but also put out a pretty high-end product for that time in those areas. So it was kind of redecorating the inner city, so to speak. Yeah. And I didn't quite understand what I was doing at the time, just to be honest, in terms of affecting people's lives. Yeah. But one day I go to an open house that we were having of one of our finished products. I just wanted to see if the broker had properly advertised it and things were going well. I got there late. It was around 4:30, and I noticed the gate was chain closed. And she was standing out by the street and about to get in her car. I'm like, well, what's going on? I thought we were going till 6, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, this guy and his family came. The wife started crying. They loved the house. And when I went off to do another check on another property, they came back and locked the gate so no one else could see the house.
I like that strategy.
I mean, it worked. They wanted that house badly, and they didn't want it to get away from them. And they'd seen a few other houses that we had developed, and I was a small time guy at the time. I'd probably do maybe 10 or 15 houses a year, and they missed out on 1 or 2 houses before, and they wanted this home. And so, when I reflect back to like, when did I discover my passion? There are a lot of moments like that along the way where you just really realize how much of an effect that you're having on people's lives in a good way. And how much more, then for me at least, how much more can I do? I love that feeling. I love solving big problems. I know there's a shortage of attainable housing everywhere in the country. And it's just, I want to see how much more I can do. So I reflect back to moments like that when you ask me, like, where did I discover my passion? It wasn't that day,
right? But
there were moments like that all along the way.
So is your background in real estate or design or construction? What's your background?
So I got my degree in managerial economics at UCLA, but my background is just strictly real estate. I've been in real estate, what you would call a sponsor or a developer, since I got out of school, starting off fairly small with just single families and small, units and things like that. And like a lot of, burgeoning developers, start off small and just kind of work your way up. For me, I really perfected working in the small space. So before I actually moved up the food chain a little bit, I was able to buy, rehab, and sell close to 300 to 350 worth of single family product. So I did a lot of that stuff before I started moving up into the multifamily space. So, and I did that from around 1996 to the early 2000s before I even bought my first apartment building. I got into the multi-space around 2003, 2004-ish. And I really started to concentrate in that area because I found a way to take what I learned from a design and space planning perspective, though I am not an architect, and implement some of those things within the renovations that I was doing at a lot of these large scale blighted properties. And I saw the same kind of uptake. I would have tenants that loved living there. They took ownership of the place. I had higher retention, and I started implementing various services on these campuses and things like that. And to just basically build that population, things like financial literacy in general, and just economic mobility programs that just help the community. And I found that I could help bigger groups of people much faster, and just kind of scale it. And so I started to get into that space around early 2000s, and around 2009, 2010, I formally opened a group specifically dedicated to transferring, multifamily communities above 200 to 300 units at a time. And so I started that group, found my way to the Southeast. The timing was great right after the Great Recession. They were still in here in the Southeast. I'm based in Atlanta right now. Atlanta didn't really start to, come out of that, that downward trend until really 2011, whereas, California was already coming out of it probably 2009, 2010. And so that allowed for the perfect fertile ground in a great city like this to acquire several thousand units over a very short time frame and implement that game plan. And I was able to do that, able to get property management, asset management, construction, and design all in one house, which I like to do to control the whole process, and just take it from inception all the way to a finished product. And so we really served a lot of people doing that.
And so, what attracted you to Atlanta? What brought you to Atlanta?
Yeah. I look at real estate investing almost like fishing. You always want to find a good secret fishing hole.
Yeah.
A good spot where the fish are biting and everything like that. But the conditions that you want to see in place. I mean, you want to be able to, number one, I did at least, I want to be able to serve people. So there has to be a need. This place is growing so fast. I mean, there are, I think, 7 million people in this MSA now. It would seem like 3.5, 4 million just a short time ago. So it is growing super fast. And with that type of growth, you see some of the things that we are aligned to kind of help do or fight against, which is like just gentrification, pushing people out. You know, a lot of the deliveries that you see, new construction is geared towards the higher end of the renter pool. Right. And you have this kind of missing middle group, you know, a lot of just gray collar workers and, you know, students and just new young professionals and things like that are just being kind of squeezed out. And so that is who we serve. And I saw the opportunity to serve those folks here, especially when you have all these great colleges in the downtown area and you got a bigger college not too far out. You got the biggest airport in the world here. You know, so there are a lot of companies here, a lot of Fortune 500 companies. It just, and the state capital is Atlanta. So, I mean, these are things that I like to see just coming into a market, first of all. Second of all, you know, my parents are from here. My dad's from here, at least. And so that I have a few family connections here. I've been here when I was here a few times when I was a kid. So there's a little bit of a connection that way too. And we invest in multiple markets. So though I was born in Los Angeles, right in downtown LA, actually, you know, I've always invested in 2 or 3 markets at a time, and I strategically pick these places based on, you know, kind of the indicators that I was talking to you about, and a host of other things. Just kind of trying to read the tea leaves and see where things are going and how long I want to be in or out of a market and how deep I want to be into that market. And Atlanta surprised me. I mean, the growth that has happened here is strictly from when I entered the market in 2010. I never thought that I'd be thousands of units into this market alone, and then also still investing in projects like the one we'll probably talk about today, which I'm sure Richard would love to talk about at some point. Sorry, Richard, I'm hogging up all the time here. But the one that you see in Hancock Park today, which is a super exciting, iconic project there.
Right,
but
it's right behind me.
There it is. Yeah, we'll get there, I promise. But I mean, the metrics are there. The people need services. I mean, the rate of people being pushed out and not being served is so high here. So there's plenty of work that I like to do, which is my passion and kind of part of my origin story, is wanting to serve people, wanting to provide, you know, tremendous amounts of attainable housing, you know, across the country in the greatest markets, but not just do it, you know, for the sake of providing attainable housing. I want to do it in a very, very, very masterful way with great people, award-winning people like the Richard Lawrence of the world that you see here and the Lohas of the world and things like that, that can deliver high design, well thought out, intelligently planned projects. Not only just something that someone can afford in a nice area, but let's see how much we can give. And so that's kind of part of my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. I wanted to give some background on the company and how it started and where it came from.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that, Daniel. Thank you. Richard, why don't you share your origin story? What inspired you to pursue your passion? Where did you start? How did you get into this world? And then lead us to where we are today.
Okay, I'm gonna start in the beginning.
Yeah, good. I like it.
Way back when I was a small kid, you know, my parents gave me a book about architecture, and there was just something, you know, that really struck a chord, and I became very, I guess you could say, obsessed with architecture. You know, when I was a teenager, you know, Frank Lloyd Wright was my hero. I have different heroes these days, but anyway, Frank Lloyd Wright was my hero. And this interest eventually took me to architecture school. You know, I was in architecture school at the University of Michigan, did my undergraduate work and my graduate work at the University of Michigan. You know, being in architecture school also kept me out of Vietnam, which was very important to me at the time. So it's a dual purpose there. When I finished architecture school, I worked in the profession, you know, in the classical sense. I worked in the profession for about 4 or 5 years. And then I kind of started this drift, I guess you might say, into design build, which of course, you know, took me into the construction world. And I also love construction. I love to see buildings being put together, not just on a macro scale, but on a micro scale. I enjoy watching tradespeople do what they do and do it with skill. So, you know, I did that for decades. and then I finally, in the early aughts, moved into development in the housing sector. Like Daniel, I've always been, for reasons I'm not quite sure I understand, always very interested in housing. A lot of my favorite architecture, would be housing projects or houses or sometimes public, facilities too, but real emphasis on housing. And so when I got into development, I was very, very focused on multifamily housing. And that's how Daniel and I met back in, I think, '05 or something. We're not quite sure when we met. But Daniel was interested in the kinds of projects I was doing and decided to invest in a couple of them. And, we formed a, business relationship and a friendship that's lasted all that time. And a couple of years ago, when Daniel and Derek were forming Domos, Daniel called me up and asked me if I would, help them and do some consulting work for them. And I said yes, and one thing led to another, as it usually does. And here we are today, trying to envision, relatively new forms of housing, that take into account, not only reducing the cost of housing or bringing it in below market at least, but also our approach really is design centric. We really are focused on how do people live, what can we do from a design standpoint and construction standpoint that improves quality of life for the people that are going to be living in our buildings. And I think there's a real commitment on the part of Domos to do that. One of the other things I just mentioned, and then we can kind of move on, is that, and Daniel already mentioned it, there's a social mission aspect to what we do. And one of the commitments that we made on the Rossmore project in particular is that there would be no involuntary displacement of residents that were already in this old building. And that's a commitment that we undertook. It's not a commitment that people undertake lightly. There's a lot of moving parts to accomplishing that. But I can say with enormous pride that Domos has followed through in that commitment. Not a single resident in this building is being displaced other than voluntarily. And when they are displaced, they're either going to be given cash for keys, buy out of their lease, or they'll be temporarily relocated while we do the renovation. And then afterwards, they can come back into the building at basically the same rent level as they left. So, we're very proud of that.
Yeah, that's inspiring. It's very surprising to hear that, from a developer, right? Typically, the developers come in, they, improve, quote unquote, the area or the building, and then it becomes so expensive that the people who are living in that area can't live there anymore.
Well, Mark, there's a secret sauce. I mean, we're significantly increasing the density of the property. So that's key to this. Without the ability to increase the density, this is a much harder needle to thread.
Right. I want to go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, sorry about that, Mark. I want to add to something and give Richard a little bit of credit, a lot of credit, all the credit for something else. But Richard said that was not an easy undertaking, but we made the commitment, and he says that with pride. He is completely accurate in saying that, and we did accomplish that. And it is a point of pride. But when you set out to do something like that, and then suddenly a pandemic breaks out, right?
Right.
So you have a plan, right? Okay, here's what we're going to do. Ready, go. And then it's like, oh no, what's going on? Pandemic. Yeah. And then on top of all that, you're in the middle of social unrest about, just legacy, racial issues in our country. Yeah. And they're just boiling to the surface, right? And you're dealing with all that. You really question your plans and what you're setting out to do. We didn't, but typically people do. To Richard's credit, what we did is he brought to us an idea of giving rent forgiveness during all this. So, you have a business plan that's being tested by all these factors, and there are residents who are probably scared for their life from being, from this health crisis. And you have somebody on our team, which I'm glad we did this, saying, can we give everybody free rent for 90 days? No excuses, no payback, no documents, basically. Just if they say they need it, can we give it to them? And so that's the kind of team that we're on, and I'm just grateful. And I want to give Richard credit for even bringing that to us, and we were able to accomplish it as well. So,
yeah, that's really impressive, and that comes very much from the culture that you've built. That right, and that's not just Richard, although Richard, I'm sure, was a big piece of that. But the culture that gave him the freedom to make that suggestion. And know that it would be received in a way that it could possibly happen also says a lot about the company.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the model, because the listeners may not know what we're talking about, right? So you're talking about sort of building out these existing buildings. It's called co-living, right? That's the focus that you have. Can you explain, either of you, what co-living is and where that model come from? Was that an existing model that you worked with, or was that inspired by something else? Is that something unique and innovative?
I'll talk a little bit briefly about it. But I love hearing Richard's perspective on it from design and construction perspective. But I mean, co-living is nothing new, but it is the phrase is new. Co-living is what people have always done. They've always taken in boarders for rooms and things like that. I mean, it's very prominent in Asia and all parts of the world where you have hyper density going on, where people are just urbanizations at a different level than we're seeing here in the United States. But now we're getting there. You see places like California, we're in New York, and now in Atlanta and Austin, Texas, just places where rents are skyrocketing. And you have people that are, young professionals, or they may manage the Verizon store, be a school teacher or a firefighter, and they can't, they make under $40,000. They can't afford to live within, 5 to 10 miles of the places where they work. And so this model works very well for that swath of people. And that age range is from 19 to, 50, and that's kind of what we get. But for us, it hit our radar when my partner, Derek Barker, Derek and I met, roughly 6 or 7 years ago, brought it to my attention. We were doing similar things. We have similar programming on our sites, and we noticed that some of our larger floor plans were already being roommated, and we didn't know that. So you have a 3-bedroom unit, and there's 3 different people in there. Yeah. And there were issues associated with that. One person moves out, now there's a delinquency because 2 people didn't prepare to budget to have to pay for the 3rd person's rent, or he took the couch or the TV or the cable or the water. There were these issues that were going on when it was done unprofessionally. And so, we started seeking out professional groups that could come in and set up programming so that we could control that, take out those friction points, and make that model work better. And we also understood that the reason why people were doing that was for economics mainly. But then once it became more professionalized, then there was a social aspect to it as well. You could have instant friends, if you're doing co-living, you came to a new town, you decide to co-live with 3 or 4 or 5 other people. You got 2 or 3 of those roommates that you might really like, and you got instant buddies, and you got, instant, recommendations for restaurants and places to work and all these things. And you also had it at a discount, typically located in a walkable, high walkable, highly amenitized area. And so that's kind of how it came about and came onto our radar. Then we started to put the business model together to go, okay, co-living as a unit typology, meaning, if you have a 100-unit building, let's just say, for example, and you had 10% co-living, 20%, 1-bedrooms or studios, 2s and 3s and so on and so forth. So as a unit typology, it really works and helps make an entire kind of campus, multifamily campus, have a high attainable, or affordable, small affordable component to it. That's the origin of it. And then you start to perfect that origin. Well, how do we specifically design our programming to lift that renter up, or and make their experience better? What do they need? Well, how can we bring services in to them so that they since the units are furnished, they won't have any furnishing. They may or may not want to cook. They may want their delivery handled differently. They may want different services for their pets. They may want community activities done differently. And so as you start to build on that and layer on that, it turns into something that's reminiscent of kind of like a boutique hotel, with highly amenitized boutique hotel with very personalized servicing, and people just tend to love it. So that's from a like a sponsorship property management perspective. That's kind of how it came about and how we see it. From a design perspective, it gets even more interesting. I'll let Richard talk about that a little bit.
Well, Daniel mentioned already boutique hotels, and to me, that's a very interesting reference because on a lot of levels. First level is that your question about the history of co-living. You don't have to go that far back in our history, or basically the history of a lot of parts of the world, to get to a time where it was absolutely normal for people to live in boarding houses and to live in hotels.
Right.
That's where they lived. They didn't have individual houses on their little plot of land, and apartment buildings were not the only option. There were boarding houses, and in fact, if you go back far enough, it was ubiquitous. I mean, that's what there was. Those are your choices: boarding houses, or you live with family. Right? That's co-living. So it's been around. It's been around for a while. Admittedly, it fell out of favor, and there was a real emphasis, for sure, in the United States on single family. Everybody wanted their single family home on their little plot in the suburbs, and we kind of got what we asked for, I guess, and now we're rethinking that.
Did it disappear because of the societal changes where people moved out to the suburbs, or did it change? Or in addition to that, because clearly that was a big piece of it, were there also zoning issues that made it more difficult to have co-living exist? Because it was sort of an informal way of living. It wasn't formalized like it is today.
Mark, I think I'll go with the societal factors, societal issues. One thing that some people realize, but more people probably need to understand it, is that the creation of the suburbs, at least in our country, was intentional.
Right.
It was intentional, and it was something that was encouraged by the government, not just the federal government, but state and local governments. And unfortunately, I think it's also of interest. It was a way to continue segregating people. It was a very successful policy. We are still a very segregated nation because of that. So, there were a lot of. I'll go with the societal pressures. That's where I think it started. But now there's pressures in the opposite direction. People don't want to be. They want to be engaged. They don't want to be, hermetically sealed. They don't want to be, in a neighborhood hanging out with just people that are exactly like them in terms of background. And then there's also, you ask anybody, particularly the demographic we're serving, people are alienated, and they want more social connection. They want more of a social network. And co-living, at least the way we're doing it, provides a platform for that social interaction. And I think that's also an important part. I mean, we kind of focus a little bit on affordability and all the wonderful amenities, and that stuff's all great, right? Affordability is great. The amenities are great. But the other aspect, the third leg, I guess, on that stool is the social aspect, being able to create new circles of friends, new societies for yourself to exist in.
Right. So
I think all those things are fascinating, and I think it's what gives the co-living movement legs, if you will.
How does the business model work? You started talking about it earlier. How do you make it work for the developer and for the investors and for the residents?
I'll let Daniel go after that one.
I mean, it's a balance. I mean, clearly, investors that are involved in this, from a philanthropic perspective, we want them to have a social, just a social compass. Let's just put it that way. You have to want to be able to help out to some degree. I mean, that needs to be front and center. Secondly, the returns need to be meaningful, and the returns that you can get from a project like this are on par with traditional multifamily deliveries. You just don't experience the same amount of displacement. I mean, that building that you see there behind Richard, if that was a traditional multifamily building with just 1s, 2s, and 3s, I pretty much guarantee you that someone making $40,000 can't live there.
Right. That's true.
And so, because the density that we're creating and the shared living, we don't have to build 3 kitchens or 5 kitchens. We can build 1 kitchen and have 4 people share it, and it'll be a kitchen that's probably you would typically find in a $5,000 or $10,000 a month apartment, because it'll be oversized appliances and just high end chef type kitchen appliances and things like that. So you not only do you get more, you have to share, but you get more is I guess the theme. But the living space that you have, your private living quarters are smaller. You'll have a private bedroom that's roughly, what do you say, Richard, 300 square feet, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially it's a suite. I mean, that's another thing to mention is that, generally speaking, Mark, the bedroom that's yours includes an ensuite bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's where you come up with the square footage. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your personal bedroom is 300 to 400 square feet, ensuite bathroom, furniture designed specifically for that space, so you can pretty much live and work out of the space. But if you have to venture off into other shared spaces, the programming of those spaces supports your life, whether it's work or just you want some leisure to go out and read a book, or you can migrate into bigger spaces where they're planned so that you can have more social interaction. So it allows you to kind of float in and out of social interactions to the degree that you want to, while having your own privacy at a rate that you're paying for specific amounts of space. So it's very experiential, which is a pretty big hallmark of the generation that really is suited for this type of living anyways.
You both mentioned design when you started talking about the development projects. How important is design to Domos?
Daniel, you want to start?
Yeah, I want to start, but I know you want to jump in. I mean, it is key. Let's just be clear. We don't need to hire the absolute best designer in the country to do these projects, but we want that group, and we feel like we have that group at the table. Like I said before, the key to this is to have inspired spaces that everybody would have pride living in, whether that be an attainable level or whether that be at the top level of cost to live in a place like this. You want people to have pride of ownership, pride of living in this space. And so that's key for me. I know it's key for Richard. I know that's what gets him up in the morning, to be involved in iconic projects like this that serve the community. And the more that the community can embrace something like this, and you don't see a lot of projects like this being made around the city, probably in the state. Just Google it. You'll quickly see that. That is what makes it special. We want this to be an asset to the community. We want this to be something that the city can point to and say, look at that as an example of how design should be, of how people should be treated that were living there before, people that should be treated who now have the opportunity to live there afterwards. And so it's a package of things to me, but design being one major part of it. I'll let you go, Richard.
Yeah, when Daniel and I met because of our interest in design. Daniel talked about how he became interested in design. I talked about how I became interested in architecture, and for me, it's fundamental. I've spent my entire career only involving myself in projects that I think had architectural merit, and I I've turned down a lot of opportunities in my life and a lot of projects simply based on the fact that I didn't think they had design merit. So I'm very serious about about architecture, very serious. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy working with Domos, because they also are interested in great architecture, and they've allowed me to, pursue my interest and my passion for it. And again, the Rossmore building, I don't know if, Mark, have you seen the images, the rendering images?
I've looked through the website, so I probably have seen it, but I don't know specifically which one you're talking about.
We need to send you the images then, because it's a remarkable building, really remarkable. And Loha has done an amazing job, and they've had to factor in a half dozen issues, any of which would be more than enough to put on a developer's plate and an architect's plate. And they've managed to keep all 6 of these balls in the air and produce something that's extraordinarily responsive to the historic building, the old building that we're working with, but is also clearly a superlative expression of modern architecture, no question about that. And we've also been very careful to adopt the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for historic preservation. So, we're looking at all of the communities out there. We're looking at tenant groups, tenant right groups, and saying, we've got something for you. We have a solution that even you folks can be comfortable with. We're doing the same with the folks in the preservation community. Same thing with the folks in the architectural community. So we're trying to do a project that, kind of rings all the bells. We're never satisfied with just ringing 1 or 2 of the bells. Got to ring them all.
Yeah, it really seems that you check all the boxes, right? So you're taking care of the developer, you're taking care of the investors, you're taking care of the residents, and you're doing great development, but you're also focused on design, and that design really seems like it's an integral part of the success of it. It's a mandatory component for it to work, right? Because it like Daniel said, it establishes that pride of place, that's where they live, and the design is a big piece of that. The design also brings value to the properties and to the neighborhood, and inspires other developers to look at that and say, we need to focus on design as well. And so the neighborhood starts to all focus on that, and the whole neighborhood starts to improve because of your focus on design. So it's an integrated part of the success of the whole entire business model.
Yeah, this is certainly what we hope for.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. What's the future? What's the future look like for Domos? What's your plan in the next 3 to 5 years?
I would say, coming out of what we've just recently are still involved in and going forward, I think that everyone would have to reflect how life can be and how life will be, how life should be. Right. Clearly, a lot of the things that we've seen over the last year are going to be gone, and it will be memories, and life will reach some level of normalcy at some point. But for Domos, obviously service is still going to be at the center of that. We want to be involved in iconic projects like this across America's greatest cities, serving the most people that we can possibly serve. And so that's going to be our key focus always. And so we've already located other projects like that in cities outside of Los Angeles, and eyeballing other markets, as we speak. And so I would guess that if you check back in with us from time to time, there'll be some new project that we're equally excited about, similar to Rossmore, in some great market around the country that we'll be talking about.
It's exciting. Richard, what's your thought on the future?
Well, one thing that Daniel just kind of touched on it a little bit, and that's the that's the fact that all of us have been affected in a variety of ways by COVID, by what's going on in the larger society. And one of the things I find myself pointing out is, people are always saying, well, oh my God, COVID, and, co-living in the age of COVID, are you guys nuts? And I go, look, what do you think the average household looks like in the United States? Well, it's between 4 and 5 people. I got news for you. 4 and 5
They're
people.
all living together.
And they're all living together. So that's what it looks like to me, And at least on Rossmore, our model, that's exactly what it is. It's 4 and 5 bedroom co-living units. That's our model. So I like to point out to people that, there's nothing wrong with our model, even during COVID. Everybody's pretty upset and people are questioning everything. But this too shall pass, like everything else in our past. We'll move on at some point, and co-living is going to be there. As we move on and move up, co-living will be there. So I'm very enthusiastic about the future. And by the way, Mark, there's a lot of different co-living models out there too. With that should be said. The Rossmore represents one type. We have these 4 or 5 bedroom units. We're looking at a project now in Atlanta where, it's much larger. I mean, they aren't people really living in the same unit, but it's studios, large number of studios sharing some central facilities, large kind of commercial kitchens, that kind of thing. So that's another model out there for co-living. So there's a lot of different ways to approach co-living, and there's no one flavor per se. There's a lot of different flavors.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I'm sorry, Mark, to cut you off. Just want to add one little thing. With comment is that one thing that you can see in the future, though, in terms of affordability, is that co-living typically will always be a discount to a studio.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you fast forward 10 years from now to the Rossmore building in that neighborhood and where rents will be, that will still be an attainable unit to allow you to live in that area at that time. It's not. I wouldn't call it future-proof affordability. But the rents will rise in co-living as they do across the portfolio, but it will still allow an entry point into a neighborhood like that. And that's very important to us.
Yeah, that's it's fundamental to the economic model. In other words, we assume, as does every other co-living operator, that they have to offer units that are discounted to market rate studio units. That's you got to do it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Mark, one other thing I wanted to mention is our Rossmore project is a mix. It's not pure co-living. 40% of the units are co-living units. 60% of the units are going to be traditional 1-bedroom apartments. I think we got a smattering of studios and maybe 1 or 2 2-bedrooms, but 60% of the units are going to be traditional apartments. So it is a blended product.
Yeah, and I'm sure that also helps build the model that that brings in additional revenue because of those higher rate units.
True.
Very interesting, very inspiring. I'm glad that I brought you on the show here because it's something that I think that our community of small firm architects need to hear, that this exists out there and that there should be more of it, right? Your models are showing the way it can be done. Like I said, it's checking all the boxes. Everybody's happy with these units, right? The developer's happy, the investors are happy, the residents are happy, the cities are happy, right? They are models of how development can be done successfully. And so I appreciate you both for pursuing it and for doing it and to being the leaders of this to show that development can be done in a responsible way in many, many different formats. Before we finalize our conversation here, I wanted to ask you a question about architects and small firm architects, who is the main listeners here today. What's one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow, Daniel?
I would say I'm an ideal guy at my core. I like creation, and I would say creative solutions to today's problems and being willing to, I guess, for lack of a better word, donate your time, not being afraid to just give time and serve in in anticipation of creating solutions and then working with groups sort of like ours or other groups to test those solutions early on in projects and not make it about compensation, but make it about learning and creating. I think if, small groups having the ability to be nimble and just try out new things have a pretty big advantage over larger kind of legacy groups that have set a way of doing things, in my opinion. And so I love to hear new ideas, new inspiring, creative ways to get things done. And I think small firms, they have the upper hand in that regard, from my perspective. I'd love to hear what Richard has to say about that.
Richard, what?
You probably
I certainly don't disagree at all with what Daniel said, but I would have things to add to that, of course.
Okay.
To me, look, I've worked with some of the most talented architects in the United States over the years, over my career, some of the most talented. And the ones that I think are going to be most successful on a go forward are architects that are, number one, listening very carefully to their clients. Okay, not all architects do that. All right, they have their own agendas, some of them, but the best of them, again, my opinion only, the best of them are listening very, very carefully to what the client is saying. Right, and then also, I can't stress this enough. Architects need to, they need to try to act in a financially responsible way vis-a-vis their client. Vis-a-vis their client. When a client tells you they have a budget of X, you got to respect that. And if you don't respect it, you're making your professional path a lot harder. A lot harder. Particularly if you're a firm that sees itself as wanting to work with developers. Developers just aren't going to put up with an architectural firm of any size that doesn't respect the developer's goal, which is to have a financially successful project. So I would say those are the two things: listen to your clients, respect their financial constraints.
Very good. Thank you for that. Does Domos partner with independent architects, or is everything in-house?
Oh no, we partner.
So if a listener is interested in learning more about Domos and getting involved in the work that you're doing, how do they reach out to you, and who should they reach out to?
They could reach out to Daniel or to me.
Yeah, I definitely think that, again, I love Richard is a very process-driven person, and I love hearing it, and it's great. And so you heard process and a strong, advocation for process, and then you heard from me creativity, ideas, and things like that. But I have my guardrails right there, keeping us in line. But please reach out to us. Like I said, I love to hear creative, innovative solutions to problems. I love that. We got to figure out a way to get construction costs down. This is something that makes both Richard and I happy without compromising quality or design and things like that. So, it's, there are a lot of things that we can talk about, but I would love to have people contact me directly or Richard.
It's, you can contact me at, it's Richard at Domos, with an S, domoscoliving.com. And Daniel is Daniel at domoscoliving.com. So if there are listeners out there that want to continue a conversation or initiate a conversation with us, you have our email addresses.
That'll be great. We will put both of those email addresses in the show notes. The website is domoscoliving.com. We will have the link to that as well. They can go look and see all the great work that you're doing over there. So domoscoliving.com. Daniel Alexander and Richard Loring. Very, very inspiring conversation. I appreciate you both for the work that you're doing and for joining me here today at Entree Architect Podcast.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you. Hope to be back soon one day. Thanks.
If you liked this episode of Entree Architect Podcast, please share a rating, write a review, and share a link to this episode with a friend. Links to the resources we discussed today are available at the show notes for this episode found at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Entree Architect is proud to be a partner with the largest, most engaged AEC multimedia network on the planet, Gable Media. We are curating thought leadership for an audience dedicated to building a better world. Listen and subscribe to all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And check out Entree Architect Academy membership. We have ready-to-edit business resources, live monthly training for architects, a supportive architect community, and Simple Systems, our new business system program developed for you, small firm architects. It's all waiting for you right now at Entree Architect Academy membership. Come join me and hundreds of Entree Architect peers at entrearchitect.com/join. That's entrearchitect.com/join to enroll today. Be well, my friends. Be healthy, happy, safe, and secure. Thank you for listening. Love, learn, and share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of Entree Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.